A decade ago, I never thought I would be at 23 on the verge of spontaneous combustion. Woe is me, but I guess that it comes with a territory.
Hi, this is Mike from the band Incubus, and you're logged on to guitar.com. Smooth jazz, easy listening. There are a lot of different ways to play chords, and you can, chords are made up of different intervals, like a basic power chord is the root note, the fifth, and then the octave. The basic power chord, this with the fifth being placed on top, or on the bottom actually, relatively speaking, and then the fifth being placed as the root note, or I mean not the root note, the bottom note, the bass note. And this fifth right here, you can put it in a different place, and that changes the voicing of the chord. Like if you move that up an octave to there, you still have the same chord, which is this, but it sounds different than this. It's this. And the voicing is placed wider apart, so that's a different way of voicing the same chord. You just kind of change the order in which the notes occur, in the sequence of, the bass note, you can change the bass note to being the fifth of the chord, which would be, sounds like that. This is the same chord as this. It's just, voiced differently. Same notes are in there, but, they're in different places. If I write a chord progression, like just a simple chord progression, sometimes I'll go into, I'll look at what the root notes are, and then I'll try to voice it somehow differently, and then it'll evolve into, a really cool guitar line, something that's different than, just playing the chords over whatever it is that, say our bass player comes up with a bass line. Maybe I'll start off by writing something over a bass line that goes directly with the bass line, and then I'll evolve it, I'll take it a step further and voice it differently, and then that'll somehow lead me into something else. Our song Pardon Me, that's a very good example of that, because we play an acoustic version of it where I had to completely change. In the acoustic version, I kind of have to compensate for the guitar during the verses of that song isn't really doing anything to support the chord structure. The bass is kind of taking care of that. So when in the acoustic song, when the bass isn't there, I kind of have to fill it in. I couldn't just get away with playing what I do during the the normal version of the song. So I had to kind of play along with the bass line and figure out the right chords to play over it to fill in all the holes. And actually, what I came up with ended up being really cool. And I'm kind of bummed out that I didn't think to go that route with it before, because I probably could have done something a lot more interesting during that part. But you live and you learn. The verse part in Pardon Me, I'm playing through a phaser and a delay, and I'm doing these volume swells. So it's kind of difficult to do with this, but maybe I could do it. Okay, I start off with this, and I just kind of like swell the volume up like that. I don't know if you can tell. And then I have a delay on, so it's like, and this is the first chord right there. And I just change the bass note right there. And then those are, each one of those chords is swelled, with the volume and the delay and everything. And then I just hit this. It just kind of delays off. And then I hit this chord, swell the volume up. And then I go back to this. And then I swell this up. And it's kind of conflicts a little bit with what the bass is doing. It's not really the same. I'm not playing the same chord that our bass player is playing that part. I don't even know really what it is. It just I just thought it sounded good. But in the acoustic version, it's like this. It's like a whole bunch of different chords, you know, that kind of work together, and I don't play anything like that in the actual song. What I played with on the record is much more like, during that part it's much more about the drums and stuff. It's like kind of like a breakbeat type thing, like a drum and bass kind of feel almost, and so what I was doing really wasn't very important to, I mean, it's important, but it wasn't, you know, it's like what I was talking about before with just kind of like fitting in the right spot. That I didn't need to be playing a lot of different chords there. But, you know, on an acoustic version where there aren't really any other instruments playing, I got to be able to fill in the holes, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. So once I sat down with an acoustic guitar and started, you know, messing around with it, I came up with all these cool chords. At least I think they're cool, to play over, you know, bass line. And it was, you know, it was just like an experiment. I was happy with the way it came out too, because I think it came out something good. A lot of people ask me how I play the main rhythm part in our song called Stellar, which is actually kind of difficult for me to play. It's one of the harder things, but you guys want me to play it, or it's just it's like this. That's the main rhythm of the song, and then the other parts of the song are, it's a really basic, you know, type of thing. Most people only ask me about that, though, just that one little thing, because people think I'm using like a whammy bar or something, because it's kind of got this, like, I guess, you know, like Far Eastern flavor to it, you know? Yeah, almost, or even something almost Asian, you know? And so people always go, you know, what are you doing right there? So that's it. I just kind of, it's hard to do kind of on this guitar because the strings are really heavy. When I recorded the song, I specifically used like lighter gauge strings so I could bend them easier, but when I play live I use really heavy strings because I just rip right through them.
Meet me in outer space.
I just, you know, I do these slides. I slide into all the notes and bend the strings real quick, and a lot of people think I'm doing it with a whammy bar. Just like this. Wait. It's very, you know, like Jimi Hendrix type of thing. Then it goes, yeah, then it goes to C sharp minor, like C sharp minor 7. Yeah, and then it goes to B, and then it comes in the chorus parts back in, you know, the A, C sharp thing. It's like, when I was studying music theory, we had this whole, like, you know, class for, you know, like a whole semester. It was all completely devoted to sight singing. It was like, and I had to learn all the intervals, like the way that each one sounded. That was probably the single most valuable thing that I ever learned in a music classroom. It like that, I think, is what gave me the understanding to be able to identify, you know, what was going on in a chord. You know, like I would have to look at a a piece of sheet music, and the only way I would know the difference between two notes looking on the staff is how much space was between them, and knowing what the interval sounds like, knowing what, you know, like a major sixth, you know, it looks a certain way on paper, and so you can just hear that in your head. So you know, if you see that the distance between the note here and the note here, and you're like, okay, that's a major sixth, then you automatically, if you've heard the difference between the two played so many times, you know, on a piano, which is the way I learned in class, the teacher would go, okay, what's this? And you play two notes, and you'd have to tell them how far those two notes were from each other. You'd say, okay, that's a minor third, or that's a major seventh. So I know exactly what each of those things sounds like, and so when you hear them in a chord, you can pull those out. You can be like, okay, well, I hear that, you know, that's a minor seventh in there, and you can hear where the root is, and you can hear the minor third in there, and you know, those three things put together, you know what I mean, those make chords. And so that, more than anything else, probably was like something that really boosted like my understanding. That's a major seventh. Like, this is an octave right here. That's a major seventh. That's like the Love Boat, you know what I mean? Like, I was taught, like, that's the Love Boat interval, you know? The Love Boat, you know, like that theme song. And then that's the fifth right there in the chord. You know, and that's a major seventh chord. Sort of. That's another major seventh chord. And then, you know, like a fifth is a very easy interval to identify, especially for people playing heavy music. That's what a power chord is. You know, it's a root note and a fifth. And this note is, you know, the interval is a fifth, and those two together make up a power chord. And, you know, then there are other things that are dissonant, you know, like, you know, then they're called tritones, like augmented fourths and fifths, which are like, if you have, say this is the root note, this is the fifth, and you augmented means, you know, it's a half step higher. That's a, you know, considered a, oh no, that's, what is that? Diminished right there. I'm sorry. I'm like confusing myself. That's a tritone right there. These things sound dissonant by themselves, but when you're using them in conjunction with something else, like when they're transitioning to other chords, a lot of times they're very, very melodic sounding. There's this one bit in second song on our record, it's called Nowhere Fast, where I do this sitar thing. I start playing this electric sitar, and it's so Steve Vai, like I listen to it and I'm like, oh, he's gonna be pissed. But, you know, how it goes? It's like, it's actually, I'd have to tune this thing down to D. It goes. That's just like, you know, a straight up Steve Vai, like, you know, might as well just be a Steve Vai cover. But, you know, it's also like Jimi Hendrix also did a lot of stuff like that, and, you know, and there's a lot of stuff like that in Zappa music also, Zappa's music too, so.